Time now for our international press review. In the papers, Clovis Casali is here. Clovis, we're reading about the two guys who escaped from the prison now being recaptured. Of course, a remarkable story, but I'm sure you've got so many other things to talk about today.
We have to talk about Cambodia with the first trial of a former Khmer Rouge leader. Well, the story is all over the international press. I took a look at the newspaper The National from the United Arab Emirates. They met with one of the victims, one of them who spent 4 years in jail. And if he managed to survive, he says, it's not because of God, not thanks to God, but thanks to his mother and his mother's cooking. He dreamt every night of baguettes and fried chicken, and he explains that by thinking of food, he was in fact daring to think capitalist bourgeois, and that's how he rebelled, really.
It's amazing stuff, isn't it? And obviously it's a remarkable trial that's going ahead. They've waited for so many years to bring it on. So I'm not surprised there's lots about it in the papers. What's next, Clovis?
Well, French newspaper La Croix also met with some victims, Cambodians in exile in France since the early 80s. And what's interesting here is that they say that this trial, this way of dealing with the Khmer Rouge, is very Occidental. In their religion, Buddhism, the idea of karma and bad karma is extremely important, of course, and it means that the perpetrators of these atrocities will anyway be punished. So there's no escape for them. And
so they're saying that the trial's like a kind of a Western imposed way of doing it, whereas in their own culture they just let it all happen and people would be punished in a different life. Is that what they say? Seriously?
Yeah. Well, they are happy with the trial, of course. Yeah. And the South China Morning Post also took a look at this trial and wonders why it took so long to trial these people. And a Khmer Rouge expert says that it's quite interesting that because of the Cold War there was international amnesia following the Tokyo and Nuremberg trials after World War II, plus the control over the tribunal. The control of the tribunal was a subject to dispute between the Cambodian government and the UN, so that's why it took so long.
OK, UN assisted is, I think, how they actually describe it, but there you go. It just sort of shows how long justice can be. A long and winding road, as they say. What's next, then?
Let's move on to Internet and Facebook, because Facebook has just changed its terms of service, and the story is in the New York Times. The New York Times says that Facebook users can now ask who owns information. Now, even if users remove their content and terminate their account, well, Facebook keeps the data. So you might think twice before joining Facebook. The story is also in Die Welt. The German newspaper highlights how problematic this can be, especially when you have unflattering birthday snapshots and the employers and anyone can see. Another advice, look carefully at your privacy settings and which friends you choose to join your network.
Sound advice there about Facebook. I'm not going to ask you whether you have a page. Tell us more about... what's our next story? What is
Let's talk about sport and Libération. It's very rare that Libération puts sports on its front page, but it has today L'Affront des Champions, Champions Rebel. Why? Because the new anti-doping law has been put in place since January by the World Anti-Doping Agency. The aim is to track down on athletes. They will have to be available an hour a day, every day of the year. Why? So they can take a test, and they have to submit their schedule. If not, they risk a heavy suspension that could put their career at risk. And many sportsmen are complaining. The world number one tennis player, Rafael Nadal, is extremely unhappy. He says that athletes are being treated as criminals. Even his mother doesn't know where he always is, so he doesn't see why the agency should. Another man, Roger Federer, another tennis player, number 2, doesn't particularly like it, but if it means that the sport will stay clean, well, it's okay for him. And Serena Williams, she's very happy with it. She's delighted, actually. She says there will no longer be suspicions, and doping is now impossible.
It doesn't mean it stays clean. It means people learn that they can dodge the deadline.
And one last story in The Guardian.
We haven't got time, so
Lance Armstrong has lost his bicycle. If you find it, it's black and gold.
Thank you very much. That was Clovis. They're stealing a little extra story there for us. You're watching France 24. Stay with us.